StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, that is go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the game is the game. Before we get into this, I'll remind you of two things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation message is guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your week. All you had to do is text me to be in my text community. It is free to join. My number is 305-384-6894. Once we reinitiate, start sending those messages again, you'll be getting them straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's a place where I do all of my coaching. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, you would like to be able to talk to me on a consistent basis around your mindset, your strategy, your systems, and your accountability for full implementation and producing results at a high level and consistently, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the place where that is going down. You cannot get access to that anywhere else except workonyourgameuniversity.com. That, again, link down below in the description. With all that out the way, folks, let's get into the topic here, which is the game is the game. What this episode is about you and your understanding that certain concepts or certain aspects, rather, of life will always work in a certain way, regardless of how times change or how people appear to have changed. Certain things are not changing, even though it may seem like there's a lot of change happening fundamentally at a root level. Many things are not changing at all. And again, notice I said things may appear to change, but they're not really changing fundamentally, because people in general don't change that much. Human beings, I mean, as a whole, I don't mean just an individual person. So I could say an individual person is not going to change that much from age 30 to age 70, and that's true. I also mean that a 30-year-old today is not that much different from a 30-year-old 50 years ago, and will not be that much different from a 30-year-old 50 years from now. As long as human beings remain fundamentally who we are genetically, we're pretty much going to be the same. Right? We may come in different shapes and sizes and say different things and do slightly different things, but generally we are very, very similar from one generation to the next. People in general don't change, even though, again, it may seem like they do. Better you understand the principles and foundations of any game, the better off you will be, because the principles, unlike everything else, do not change. Tactics change, ideas change, trends change, strategies change. Principles, on the other hand, never, ever change. A principle is etched in stone. This is why it's important that you have personal principles. It's important that if you run a business, the business has principles, and it's very important that you understand the principles of anything in which you are involved, because all the successes of everything that happens in that space are built on the foundation of the principles. I'm not saying that a tactic can't help or a strategy cannot be fruitful, but everything is built on the foundation of a principle. So the better you understand this, again, the better off you will be, because a lot of stuff is not changing. Point number one. Topic once again today is the game is the game. Number one, stop trying to change the game and instead learn how to play. Stop trying to change the game and instead learn how to play. The Serenity Prayer states, God, please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Close quote. Stop trying to change the game and instead learn how to play means accept that the game is the game, and all you can work on is how you play the game. You cannot change the game itself. Here's where you need to understand the difference between what can be changed and what cannot be changed. And if you mess this up, it will cost you. It will cost you in missed opportunity of things that you could have changed, and it will cost you in used time you cannot get back of things that, regardless of how hard you try, will not change. What you don't want to do is use up your resources trying to change something that is simply unchangeable. Any of you seen the movie Blow with George Jones? It was George? No, that wasn't Blow. It was the movie Casino with Robert De Niro, and who else was in that movie? I know Robert De Niro he played Sam Rothstein. So in this movie Casino, if you didn't see the movie, it's okay. There was a guy who had moved to Las Vegas and he was running a casino and he needed to get a liquor board license. if you know anything about bars and casinos, know that the liquor license is a very valuable thing to have, because if you can't sell alcohol, then that cuts off a huge chunk of your possible audience of customers. So Sam Rothstein, played by Robert De Niro in the movie Casino, I believe I'm getting these facts right. He was going to appear in front of the Nevada Gaming Board in order to be approved for his liquor license. Now, what happened before that appearance in front of the gaming board was that he had a staff member working in one of his casinos who was like this screw up kid, screw up, go nowhere, dead end kid. And this kid kept screwing up at work. Sam Rothstein had the kid fired. So right before his appearance in front of the liquor board, I believe it was the uncle of this kid who Rothstein had fired, came to Sam Rothstein's office and said, "Hey, sir, hey, I understand that. I don't know if you know, because a lot of people work in a casino. Y'all been to a casino before? It's a very big place, a lot of staff." He said, "Mr. Rothstein, that kid that got fired a couple weeks ago, or you fired this kid a couple weeks ago, and Rothstein didn't know anything about the kid. That kid happened to be my nephew." And but the man was asking, he was like this old desert redneck type white guy, and he was asking Mr. Rothstein, could you find a kindness in your heart to forgive the kid and reinstate him and give his job back? And Sam Rothstein said, "Well, let me look at his record." He looked at his record and said, "Well, this guy was late over and over again. He had done this. He had stolen this. He made this mistake, that mistake. That kid is incompetent. No, he's not getting his job back." And the man said to him, "Well, Mr. Rothstein, I really am strongly asking, and I'm really sincerely asking, could you really just consider giving him another chance, giving him his job back?" And Sam Rothstein was just very matter of fact, not matter of fact, but very logic based, and saying, "Well, look, this kid made all these mistakes. He's not useful. He's incompetent. No, he can't work there. He's fired. He can't come back." And the guy, he had his top hat. He said to him, he took his hat off while he was sitting there talking to him. He said to him, "Well, you guys come from out of town, and you really run around here as if you own this place, but you don't really realize that you're just visitors in this town." And Sam Rothstein just looked at the guy quizzically. He didn't know what he meant. The guy got up and just walked out. So then the next scene, you see Sam Rothstein is just sitting in front of the liquor board in Nevada, and he's supposed to be getting a fair hearing about whether or not he's going to get his license. And before he even gets to talk and have a hearing, the people on the liquor board, like the judges or the commission, whatever they're called, they say, "Well, we've already made a decision on this, and that his license is rejected, and that's the close of this," and everybody else seconds it, and they all just get up and walk out. And Sam Rothstein is standing there like, "Hey, didn't you tell me I was going to get a fair hearing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" And they basically just give him a whole bunch of, they give him the runaround and don't let him get his liquor license. And as that's happening, as he's having this kind of shouting match, well, he's shouting at the people at the liquor board, the man who asked for his nephew to get his job back, he was sitting in the audience in this little courtroom. He gets up and just slowly, quietly walks out. And what's inferred here, they don't say it, but what's inferred is that that guy who asked for his nephew to get his job back, he knows people who knows people at that liquor board. And when he got blown off by Sam Rothstein, "I won't let your nephew get his job back," he went and made a call to a person who made a call to a person and said, "Don't let that guy get his liquor license." And that was the start of Sam Rothstein's downfall in Las Vegas. So if you've never seen the movie Casino, I just gave you, this is just one scene from the movie. It won't ruin the movie for you. And I might even have some of those details flowed, but the general point is you got to know what you can control and what you can't. All right, that's the whole point. And knowing somebody who knows somebody is what we were just talking about in yesterday's episode. So you got to know what you can control. And you got to know the difference between what can be changed and what cannot be changed. And Sam Rothstein there in that movie, he could have controlled that situation, but he didn't realize what he didn't realize. He didn't know what he didn't know. His unconscious incompetence led him to not understand that the guy there, who wasn't some flashy, city guy like Sam Rothstein was, he still had power, even though he may have appeared to just be an everyday nobody guy. He had some power, and he had the power to help Sam maybe survive Las Vegas, but he wasn't able to. So what you need to understand is the difference between what can be changed and what can't. And what you don't want to do is use up your resources trying to change something that is simply unchangeable. So my episode is about money and business. I explained to you that money does not have a moral compass. So if you're trying to change the way that people make money and base it around morality and righteousness and who is worthy of money, you're playing a game that you can't win. Money moves for its own reasons, and morality is not one of them, just as an example. And when you're trying to change the game instead of learning how to play, you're putting yourself in a bad position. This is what we're talking about here in the first point. Learning how to play the game is understanding that when you are going into an environment that is unfamiliar for you, one of the first things you should do, just as a rule of thumb, is find somebody for whom the environment is not unfamiliar. You move into a new town, find somebody who's been around that town for a while so they know where to go, where not to go, who's who, who's what, who you need to be cool with, who you need to be friends with, who you should be associating with. You need to go find those people because they will introduce you to the people who you need to know that will help you get things done a lot faster with them than you would ever get done without them. There was a scene in this TV show called The Wire that was on HBO many years ago where this guy was trying to open a boxing gym in the city of Baltimore, and someone told him, well, you got to have a license to open a gym. So he went to the downtown area to go to the offices where he would have to get his license stuff. And they gave him all this paperwork that he was going to have to fill out. And there was so much paperwork. He had like this whole stack of paperwork. And he's like, man, I didn't know I was going to have to do all this just to open the gym. This guy was like a street guy who wanted to open a boxing gym. So then he goes to a church guy. And any of you knows anything about, I don't know how it is out in the suburbs, but where I come from, I'm a city guy. So any of you knows anything about church guys in cities, they know everybody. Church people know everything, and they know everybody. They know everybody's business. They know who's who. They know what's what. So he goes to a church guy, and the church guy says, well, let me go downtown with you and see if I can help you out. So instead of going to all those offices and asking for paperwork, all he did was bring him to like a local, like a city councilman's office. And the city councilman want to be cool with the church guys because the church guys know everybody. And if the church guy puts in a good word about the city councilman, well, guess what? City councilman wins elections. So the city councilman said, okay, well, you try to open that gym. He has a street guy with him that wanted to open the gym. You wanted to open the gym, didn't go too well, right? Okay, he said, well, you got to use my name. So then he writes something, scribbles something on a little business card and says, take this with you down to that same office that you went to last week where they gave you all the paperwork and tell them that you got this from me and see how things go then. And fast forward, the next scene you see, the guy has a gym open already. He didn't have to do any of the paperwork. The whole point being, when you know the right people, things get done that you otherwise would have to do on your own. The point being, folks, this is the game. Don't complain about this. Some of you, actually all of you who are listening to this, have had this happen in your favor at times in your life. And we probably all had it happen against us at times in life. This is the game. This is just how it goes. When you know the right people, things get really easy. And when you don't know the right people, things can be really, really difficult and there can be a lot of friction. So what should you do? Play the game, okay? Stop trying to change the game. Learn how to play. Knowing that this is the game, folks, what's the first thing you should do when you go into a new environment? I just told you. Find the people who know the people and get cool with those people because that's how you make things happen. And if you are not cool with the right people or you have the wrong relations with the wrong people, people who have the power, then you may find yourself on the outside looking in. It's just how it works. It's just the game, okay? It's just, I'm giving you a couple examples here, but again, think of your own life and your own situations. Many of you have had this happen. Some of you right now are working at or on your way to a job that you have because you knew somebody who knew somebody, not because of your amazingness in the job interview process or because you just were clearly the most qualified and best candidate. Maybe you were, but that ain't the reason why you got the job. You got the job because you knew somebody who knew somebody, and ain't nothing wrong with that. That's the game. As a matter of fact, you should actually try to do that more rather than doing it less. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the game is the game. Number 2, understand the rules of the game. So the first thing I told you was to learn how to play. Second thing is know the rules. Know the rules of whatever game that you're in. Now, rules are something that can change, but they often change very slowly, if at all. Here's where you need to make a judgment call and decide if it is worth it to go against the rules to try to change them, or should you just adapt and adjust to the rules? Which one should you do? Should you go with the rules as they are, or should you adapt and adjust to the rules? Just a question you got to ask yourself. Any of you follow the political landscape in the United States of America, you know that if someone's trying to run for any type of federal election, that what wins those elections? Because here's the second point: is know the rules of the game. What wins an election if you're trying to win any type of federal election? What wins the seat? What wins the position? President, Congress, senator, judge, circuit judge, any of those things. How do you win? Anybody know the answer? One word. I just mentioned it in the point number 1. Money. 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 Not relationships, money. Relationships can lead to money, but what wins the election is money. You want to win a presidential election, you need a lot of money to win. You don't just need to be strong on the facts and have data and be able to win a debate. You won't get on a debate stage unless you are hitting certain numbers in the polls. And the only way you hit those numbers in the polls, you have to advertise enough that people will remember that you exist, and they have to mention that you're the person that they will vote for. If that doesn't happen, you ain't getting on the debate stage. So it doesn't matter how good you are. So the rules of the game is, at least as it currently constructed, you need money to win an election in the United States. You want to win a federal election, you must have money. You don't have money or access to money, you ain't winning. No matter how much you know. That's the game. So what are the rules of the game that you're in? Do you know? If you don't, that may be an indicator of why you're not getting the outcomes that you want right now, because you don't know the rules. So you got to know what's happening in the game so you can best play it. Now, rules can be changed, but they don't change very quickly. They change slowly. So you look at someone like Donald Trump, for example. Did he play the normal rules of elections? No, he didn't. He didn't play the normal rules, but he took the rules of what he did know, which is branding and business, and he applied them to politics, and it worked. Now, that worked for him, and he understood that it could work for him because he understood what actually wins the election is, yes, you want to have money, but also at the same time, you have to be recognizable. Do people actually know that you exist? Now, the difference with him was that he wasn't just some random guy. Many people already knew who he was before he ran for election. So he was a little bit different than most people who are coming in and running for an election. You may be known politically, but are you known to the everyday person who doesn't pay attention to that shit? Donald Trump was. So he was able to leverage that in a different way because of who he was. He understood that he could do that. Most people can't do that. And then the changing of the rules. Now, once he got in, he started changing some rules. He started changing things up. He basically undermined the authority of the mainstream media and brought a lot of people to distrust the mainstream media. He basically changed the landscape of the mainstream media to where they are not nearly as trusted or as respected or as authoritative as they used to be because of the way that he undermined the value of the trust that we once had in him. He did that. He changed those rules from the inside. Now, understand, a lot of pain and a lot of friction comes with changing rules. And did Donald Trump have to deal with a lot of blowback from changing the rules? Absolutely. Still dealing with it. And his supporters still deal with it. And as of this recording, we're leading up to the 2024 election, he's still dealing with it. So if you're going to change rules, understand there's going to be a lot of blowback you got to deal with. And if you're not willing to take those arrows in your back, I suggest you not try to change the rules and just play by the rules that are in there, or find a different game in which you are comfortable playing by the rules. Because every game has rules. When I mentioned Sam Rothstein trying to get that liquor board license thing, he didn't realize that he was violating the rule. Don't piss off the wrong person. He didn't know that the person he was pissing off was the wrong person, and that was his mistake. He didn't know what he didn't know. He was so in his own head thinking about himself that he didn't even think about, who is this person in front of me? Why are they coming to me asking for some bum kid to get a job at a casino? Can he get a job at a gas station? What's the difference? He didn't know what he didn't know. And he violated the rule and he paid for it. And anytime you violate a rule, you're going to pay for it. So there are people who have chosen, actually, let me back up. A mistake here, and not knowing the rules can cost you a lot of your resources, which is why your judgment is very important in the situation of knowing the rules. You make a mistake and not knowing the rules, it'll cost you a lot. It can cost you in time, money, attention, energy, focus, relationships. And again, there are people who have succeeded and there are people who have failed in both following the rules or trying to follow the rules or trying to break the rules or trying to change the rules, let's say. So there's no one size fits all answer that always applies to everybody. This is where your judgment comes in. It also depends greatly on who you are as a person and how exactly you go about the choice that you take. As I said, Donald Trump, he knew who he was as a person. He knew he could deal with the negative blowback. He knew he could deal with the fact that a bunch of people were going to turn on him. He knew he could deal with the fact that a bunch of people who supported him were going to be attacked just for supporting him. And he said, all right, I'll accept all of that and I'm still going to go do it. And he did it. Now, not everybody is wired that way. You need to know how you're wired. Would that make sense for you to do something like that on a parallel level based on what you do, based on where you're at and what you have going on? Are you willing to deal with that? If not, find a different game or change your approach. So one simple thing you could do is understand that games have winners and losers, right? Look at the people who are currently winning and ask yourself, what are they doing? What are they doing that are putting them in position to win? Then look at the people who are currently losing and ask yourself, what are they doing that are putting them in position to lose? And then do more of what the winners are doing and less of what the losers are doing. All right, simple concept. Again, we have these things in us as human beings called mirror neurons. We can watch someone else do something and we can create at least a facsimile of doing the same things that they're doing because we're watching them do it. All right, so look at what the winners are doing, copy at least some of those things, look at what the losers are doing, and stay away from some of those things. Law of association, simple as that. Now, again, it doesn't mean you need to follow exactly to the letter because, again, I just gave you an example. Donald Trump, he didn't follow exactly what traditional politicians had done to become president, but he created his own version of the rules that worked and he made it work. Now, is anybody else going to be able to come along and do the same thing that he did? I think it'll be a while before there is, maybe. But again, you got to know who you are and what are your assets. What are the assets that work best for you? And it's not the same for everybody. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to, or understanding that the game is the game. Number 3, understanding the only thing that's changing is the players. Only thing that changes in life is the players. And another thing I'll mention about former, at least for now, former President Donald Trump is that because he went against the grain of the traditional rules of winning, and then he won anyway after breaking many of the rules, not all of them, but many of the rules. I mean rules, when I say rules, I mean the norms of how you go about becoming president. Many people don't like him not because of anything they say logically about him. Well, he did this and he broke this law and this rule and he did that and that. The things that people say, those are talking points for the most part. People aren't really upset with him about it. What people are mostly upset with him about is the fact that he broke the rules and succeeded. Whereas many people spend their entire lives following all the rules and don't create the level of success that he created by breaking the rules. So it really pisses people off. Like, how did this guy come out of nowhere, break all the rules and succeed? And I've been following the rules for 20 years and I haven't been able to succeed. How does that make sense? It pisses people off. And instead of just admitting that, which most people are loath to do, they would instead, let's just find a reason to attack him for doing something that exposes the fragility of my own ego to myself. Different conversation for a different day, which we will have leading up to the 2020 election. Trust me, we're going to get to that, but not today. So the whole point is, folks, understand the only thing that's changing is the players. Times change, styles change, trends change. People do not change. We become a certain type of person in early adulthood, and for the most part, we remain the same person throughout the rest of our lives. Now, we can change our approaches, we can change our tactics, our strategies, but for the most part, at our core, we don't change. Clothing styles change. We swap out one car for the next one. We access new technology, but throw all of that away, strip all that away, and people are pretty much the same now as we were 100 or 200 years ago. In the game, the only thing that changes are the players. I used to play basketball. There was a certain way that we carried ourselves, certain things that we did. Now, I'm not playing basketball anymore, and there's a new wave of players out there doing the same things that we were doing. They're just doing it now in today's world with today's technology and today's knowledge. The only thing different is the people. That's it. Everything else is the same. Old people die out and retire out. New people come in and do the same thing that the previous group was doing. All right, so there was an 80-year-old guy, he died out. All right, now his 20-year-old grandson, he's going to live the same life. That's how it goes. Maybe on a higher level, maybe with a little bit more knowledge and information, but pretty much going to be a similar type of person. When I was in college, I went out and partied. I talked to girls. I spent more time socializing than I did doing schoolwork. That's the truth. That's how I got through school. When I left college, a new group of people came in and did the exact same thing. There's some kids in college right now doing the same thing that I was doing when I was in school. Only thing that's different is they're them and I'm me, but the behaviors are the same. They're following the same framework. So the game is exactly the same. When I play basketball, again, there's a new group playing now. It's just not me. In this space that I'm in now, I'm writing books, have this show, being in business. 100 years from now, there'll be a new group of people doing similar things. They're going to have books. They're going to have a show. They're going to have a business. They're going to do all this stuff. Maybe there'll be new technology and new tools with which to do it, but the overall idea is not going to be any different. So you need to understand this and ask yourself, even as a business person, as a salesperson, where's the opportunity here? Where's the opportunity? If people aren't changing, what are people really paying attention to now? What are they going to be paying attention to tomorrow, next week, next year? How can I put myself in between them and those things so that I can collect some of the resources that come in the process of being involved, of being in the middle, being the middleman in that whole process? All that said, let's recap today's class, which is the game is the game. This is about your understanding that certain aspects of life will always work in a certain way, regardless of how times change or how people have appeared to change. Point number 1, stop trying to change the game and instead learn how to play. or do not violate this rule. This rule, it will cost you dearly anytime you violate this rule of not understanding what you can change and what you cannot change. Do not put too much resources into trying to change the game until you really, really understand the full cost of changing the game and the full cost of what will happen if you succeed at changing the game. Because if you succeed at changing the game, you're going to be disturbing a whole lot of people. Again, see Donald Trump for an example. Point number 2, know the rules of the game. Rules, on the other hand, are things that can change, but they often change very slowly, if at all. You got to make a judgment call. Is it worth it for me to try to flout the rules and win anyway? Or should I just go find a different game that in which I am comfortable with the rules? Or should I just adjust my mindset so that I'm comfortable with the rules where I'm at? That's a question you have to answer. And number 3, understand the only thing that's changing is the players. Times, styles, trends change. People generally do not change. 100 years from now, it's going to be a whole bunch of people replacing us doing the same stuff that we're doing now, maybe with different technology, again, different ideas, different places, but generally the exact same people. Human beings are not that much different, even though we all try to pretend that we are. All that said, text me, see you on my community. My number's down below in the description. Also, workonyourgameuniversity.com if you'd like to have me as your direct coach. That's the place that it happens. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Links down below in the description. Mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, all based on performance, consistency of performance, and producing high-level results for high-level individuals only. Work on your game. Dre